Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet, and another best of the week video. And in this past week, the early picture for 2025 for what I would call the best of the rest chasing contenders looks a little clearer now, but not totally announced yet, but good signs these fights are going to happen, or at least are looking to be made. So as you can see here, Dan Rafael reported sources, Dubois, Parker and hashtag Beterbiev Bivol 2 plan for Feb 22 Riyadh season card that will be absolutely stacked, and I do not use that word lightly. And he's also included in that sort of revelation from Dan Rafael and reported elsewhere, that another heavyweight fight involving Zhang Zhilei and Agit Kabayel is also tabbed to be on that card. Some other decent fights as well are also mooted to be there as well. But for our purposes, we're discussing Daniel Dubois, Joseph Parker, and Zhang Zhilei, Agit Kabayel. And we'll come to Martin Bakole soon, because obviously he's been in the mix with the likes of Parker, Kabayel and Zhang as, you know, one of these guys that could be fighting each other. But he has been ordered to face someone else now because those other fights are looking likely to be made. We'll come to that in a moment. But Parker, Dubois, this fight has been gaining legs in recent weeks. And when I saw that there was a flurry of activity by different boxing media after a period of where basically months and months on end where Parker was calling, you know, basically till he was blue in the face for a big fight, calling out anyone who would give him an opportunity, remembering he was meant to be fighting, or rumoured to be fighting, at the end of 2024, but it didn't happen. And after his big wins a year ago against Wilder and then Zhang Zhilei earlier this year, effectively the last, 8 or so months, he has been sitting, waiting, watching, wanting to do something. But the actual chance that he's facing Dubois now looked pretty much certain. Media cycle has come to that now, and all what we're hearing from the likes of Daniel Dubois and also from Frank Warren certainly is pointing to that direction. And if this card is going to be February 25th, I think it is, or February 22, they're going to be announcing that shortly, probably prior to Christmas. Maybe on that undisputed card it'll get leaked out, or in the week of fight week, something like that. Not undisputed, I should say. Fury versus Usyk, the rematch where 3 of the 4 belts are on the line. In terms of Zhang Zhilei and Agit Kabayel, yeah, really good fight. Kabayel has been making his bones in the past year or so on these Riyadh season cards, beating Aslanbek Makhmudov convincingly, and then also taking down Frank Sanchez convincingly. Both those guys were undefeated. Obviously, with Makhmudov having lost since, it takes a little bit of the sheen away from Kabayel's performance there, and some question marks about Frank Sanchez's health with his one of his knees, which was clearly an issue in the fight. But still, Kabayel's made every post to win it. Zhang stopping Deontay Wilder brutally, that was something that's really put himself back in that sort of title conversation. One of these guys, if they win, they certainly deserve a title shot. Even now, Kabayel probably deserves a title shot based on what he's done. Certainly there's guys who've done a lot less. So I like this fight. But I guess when you go to Martin Bakole and there was a post here. Agit Kabayel pulled out of his IBF final eliminator purse bid against Martin Bakole last week. It's now rumoured that he will face IBF number 4 Zhang Zhilei in February. But he is, as this graphic points out, avoided. And Billy Nelson had reposted that. Billy Nelson trains Martin Bakole, and now it's Martin Bakole ordered to face for the IBF eliminator against Efe Ajagba. And to be honest, this is a great opportunity for Efe Ajagba. The past couple of years since his loss to Frank Sanchez, where he was thoroughly outclassed, he's actually made a really good run of it in terms of the performances and the matchups that he's had. He's done pretty well. He has been improving. He's been getting better. But he needs that next step, that next level of opponent, and Martin Bakole certainly constitutes that. But what I would say is Ajagba has had, I think for the most part, it's been from the top-ranked side of things, not careful matchmaking, but matchmaking that does favour what he brings. Certainly against Martin Bakole, I think Bakole would go in a red-hot favourite. But Ajagba, he can punch if he catches Martin Bakole with, those long, straight right hands that he loves to, deploy. That could be something that could really test Martin Bakole. But Bakole, I certainly believe, goes in a hot favourite if, in fact, this happens. Is Top Rank and Ajagba going to take this, or is Martin Bakole going to have to keep going down the list of the IBF rankings? So, Zhang, he is not in play for Bakole at the moment. Remembering, the Saudis wanted Zhang and Bakole, and then it became, Zhang and other potential options. Bakole and Kabayel were ordered as well, and Kabayel didn't want that smoke by the look of it. I guess for Zhang and Kabayel, perhaps they're thinking that each other is a better potential matchup than the likes of the very heavy-handed and devastating Martin Bakole. But I don't think Bakole's unbeatable, but obviously, the way that some of these heavyweights are moving, it does look a certain way. But anyway, final comment, Dubois-Parker, very good fight. It's a fight that Dubois has been calling for and saying for a number of years he likes his chances in that potential style matchup. Zhang Kabayel, yeah, I like that as well. Kabayel, he can be hurt. We saw that against Argon Smakichi. Zhang will certainly test that chin if he can land, but Kabayel has the ability to, box and move and make it very troublesome for Zhang. And if he can avoid the worst of what Zhang's got, he could potentially break him down to that body and potentially stop Zhang, because Zhang's gas tank is basically nothing. Anyway, final comment from Billy Nelson on Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker. He says, will be a very good fight. I agree. Michael Hunter. So he has been confirmed to return to the ring on December the 8th in Guadalajara, Mexico. And at the moment, it is a TBA. So the last couple of years has not been fantastic for Hunter. Or should we say, even going back to, we'll look back here on BoxRec, going back to the pandemic. So before that, he had that draw with Alexander Povetkin. Some people thought that Hunter was unlucky. And then over the pandemic, dropped by Matchroom, presumably because of the price tag associated with his contract. And then he had that contract with Triller. And then you have a situation, a couple of random fights in 2023 and early 24 in Mexico, which is, I guess, in line with this one. He fought Cassius Chaney on a Don King card. Chaney didn't come to fight at all, and Hunter got a pretty, it was a wide unanimous decision. He landed so many body shots in that fight, it wasn't funny. It was just ridiculous in the end. So it's been a weird old time for Michael Hunter. And with his style, where he does rely on his athleticism to some extent, his reflexes. Remember, he's not the biggest heavyweight, but, 36 years old now, time's not necessarily on his side for his style. So he needs to make something happen. And this in Mexico is not it, but at least it's some activity. So disappointing year, a couple of years for Hunter, and he's sitting, waiting and watching. Decent ranking in the WBA, but hey, let's see. Remembering also, he did walk away from that IBF final eliminator a few years ago against Filip Hrgovic. Who knows how things could have turned out if he'd actually taken that. Bakhodir Jalolov, the Olympic gold medalist of the last two Olympics, so Tokyo and then Paris, he will be returning to the ring in the pro ranks, and this will be in early 2025 on an Eye of the Tiger card. So they're calling it the Gold Rush. So he is featuring on the card, not the main event here, but he will be facing David Spilmont. So 16-8 and one journeyman, French heavyweight. Some of you might recall he actually fought Alan Babic a few years ago, and that was a pretty fun fight where Spilmont actually hurt Babic at one point in that fight, ultimately went on to lose it though. So anyway, Bakhodir Jalolov says, I'm very excited for the next chapter of my professional career now that I've represented my country at the 2024 Olympics. In 2025, I plan to push towards my quest to become heavyweight champion, and for me, this quest will resume on February 6th in Montreal. And that's Bakhodir Jalolov's comment. So this card, February the 6th in Montreal. So Jalolov is promoted by Top Rank, and this obviously, joining this card is part of that link up. Top Rank has been working closely with Eye of the Tiger. So obviously they didn't have a card that they could put him on I would have thought it would have been better to get him out before the end of this year, but hey. Okay, so David Spilmont, the opponent, 16-8 journeyman. Yeah, little disappointing, but at least good to see him back. 14-0, so let's hope that he's not dropping down to the amateurs anytime soon. We can get a run of fights going for Jalolov at this point in his career. Teremoana Jr has signed on with Matchroom, and this has come out the morning that I'm recording this Best of the Week video. So he actually fought Bakhodir Jalolov at the Olympics and put on a pretty good effort if you saw that fight. 29-28 on a few of the judges' scorecards, 3 of the 5 in fact. So he was competitive. So I've had my own Teremoana Jr for a couple of years now. He's 26 years old. He's the number 1 Australian amateur as he sort of turns over here. That's not surprising given he represented them at the Olympics. 4-0 as a pro, so he's sporadically fought between 2020 and 2022 and then decided to focus on the amateurs and getting to the Olympics, which he succeeded in getting to the Olympics. And obviously he fought well in the lead-up tournaments and pretty well at the Olympics as well. So 6'6", you know, an emerging talent. He's one of these guys that will need to be a bit of a slow burn. You're going to have to give him 3 or 4 years to really know what you've got. But from what I've seen, there's a lot of raw ingredients and talent. And he says, we'll get to some of his quotes here, "I'm born and raised in Australia, but I'm also very proud of my Cook Islands heritage. I come from a long line of warriors and I'm very motivated to carry on the family name. I want the world to know it, and I won't stop until I've achieved that. I want to be on the world stage, and I know that if I put the work, I have the ability to do that. The plan is to continue to build a fan base at home in Australia, but also around the world. I'm excited to get going on this journey, and the first stop is Monte Carlo." So he is going to feature on a Matchroom card in Monte Carlo, December the 14th. So he continues, "I've learned so much over the last few years and really enjoyed the Olympic experience, but now it's time for a new phase in my career. My dream is to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, and I believe with Matchroom, Gold Star and Tasman fighters behind me, I can achieve that. It's going to be an exciting ride, so let's go." And Eddie Hearn, he says, "I'm delighted to add another exciting heavyweight talent to our growing global stable. Teremoana gives us a glimpse of what he is capable of in Paris Olympics, and his style and ability has improved drastically in recent years. He sees his Matchroom debut in Monte Carlo as his new professional debut, and I'm sure he will be putting in the many in the heavyweight division on notice. Watch the Monte Carlo showdown, yada yada yada." So I mean, I like this for Teremoana Jr. For the fact that, as we know, Frank Warren's stable is so deep and stacked at the moment, with Matchroom having a lot of cards, but not necessarily a lot of heavyweights. And because he's still young, he's still a prospect, similar to the likes of, say, Johnny Fisher and some others who've been there in recent years. As a prospect, he's still cheap. He'll get run out on quite a few cards, I think, in his first couple of years with Matchroom. So he'll have the opportunity to grow and develop in front of our eyes. So from that perspective, I think for Teremoana, it's not a bad fit at all. Moving on, Gurgen Hovhannisyan. So he will be fighting Patrick Mailata on the 12th or 13th of December, I should say. And this is going to be on an MVP card. So Mailata, a New Zealand heavyweight who in recent years has been fighting in the Team Combat League. He's had a couple of other different fights like that one against Antonio Moriles, where it was a very close fight, a split decision loss there. He could maybe count himself a little unlucky, but one of the red flags with Mailata has been the ever-creeping weight. So he's been creeping up the last couple of years, weighing 300, as high as 325 in 2022, 2023, 321 pounds. So that does hamper him quite a bit at 6'4". But we'll have to see. Gurgen Hovhannisyan is one of these guys who's really got an engine. If I can get back. So many of you will remember him from his good fight against Michael Polak-Coffey on PBC. That was kind of the sort of coming out party to some extent for him. Since then, he's had some decent fights with Colby Madison, Luis Pascal, but with PBC effectively stalling out and not really having many cards, and then not really, when they do have cards, they don't feature heavyweights. I don't blame him for moving on, and hopefully this fight with Mailata If he can go in there, use his height and his reach, 6'7" Armenian, lot to like, 26 years old, throws a lot of volume too. This could be something that could really sort of kickstart and restart his career. For Mailata, he'll be just hoping that it's going to be something that will, for him as well, get his career back on track. It kind of has started in recent years. You've got Pryce Taylor signing with Dmitry Salita. He'll be making his debut with Salita Promotions as part of Big Time Boxing USA Thursday, 12 December in Flint, Michigan. And Pryce Taylor currently 4-0. Really haven't sort of seen much of him currently on BoxRec, rated as number 296 in the world. So he's facing a low-level journeyman in his first fight with Salita. 1-5 journeyman record there with one draw. So a showcase, no doubt. A quick comment, Oleksandr Zakhozhyi losing to, I'm going to butcher this, Zakhozhyi, and this was for one of the EU titles, or EBU, was an EU heavyweight title. This was last week. Haven't seen the full fight, obviously I've seen the highlights, and both these guys getting knockdowns through the fight. Zakhozhyi getting a knockdown early, Zakhozhyi late in the fight, the 10th round, ultimately went on to canter to a decision. Pretty wide scorecards and not good for Oleksandr Zakhozhyi and the what next. And Zakhozhyi was a late replacement as well. So that was for the EBU European heavyweight title. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.